Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop at F-14. Told you guys I'd do a video of the layup so I can see me swapping epoxy around. So here you go. I've already done the other side of this, the same mold with the other side. It's actually in the bag now, so you'll probably hear the vacuum pump keep on and off every 15-20 minutes or so. So if it does that, I'll get quiet for a little while. I've already made up my spooge mixture and applied it to all the tight areas around these gear door form, flange forms, and all that stuff. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a layer of glass right there to kind of let it soak up some of that spooge mixture. And then, that does that, I'm also going to put down another layer of glass. And I'm going to leave that center portion of glass out for the moment. These are all cut oversized, if you're wondering. Instead of making a dedicated set of glass templates for this, I just used the Airx template, and then the rotary cutter, I just went around the template, about an inch and a half larger than the template. And it actually seemed to work out fairly well. I'm going to try it again on the bottom center fuselage, see how it works there. If it works out really well, I might just skip making those glass templates for the majority of this thing and just do that for some of the parts that kind of need it, like gear doors and speed brakes, slats, stuff that make it easier if your cloth is basically pre-cut to the right size. For these fuselage parts, a little bit extra glass really doesn't hurt. Then you get a little bit of an extra overlap and it'll add a little bit more strength to those corner areas. So get a fresh cup and mix up some epoxy and we'll start slopping it around. Good thing I bought more epoxy because that 5-gallon drum I've been using for who knows how many months is finally starting to run low. My little drum holder tool works great though because you can just grab the top of the drum and tilt it over and it'll run out a little bit faster. Makes life a little easier getting epoxy out. Bare limit while I get the epoxy going. I've been using those foam rollers on all the parts so far. It definitely makes life a little easier in some aspects and a little more difficult in others. They work great because they cover a lot of area, but they hold so much epoxy that when your first batch starts kicking off, you have to replace the roller, or else the roller will it'll start smoking and the epoxy will start bubbling up on you. Before you know it, your roller's on fire. You know, not quite on fire, but it smells like it's going to catch fire. It's really hot. So, like even this little small section of mold, I went through 2 or 3 rollers. I think it was 3 rollers. And that back portion, I think I went through the top aft section. I went through 4, I think, on that. And then the front section, I think I went through 4 on that one. Luckily, they're fairly cheap. I think that a box of 10 of those big ones is only like $7 or $8 plus shipping. So it's not too bad as long as you stock up on them, which I did. But I'm gonna have to order some more, I can tell. And the little kits they give you come with this nifty little epoxy pan. Which helps slow the epoxy kicking off. It can spread out, but doesn't have as much heat generated because there's not as much of it in a small area, so it doesn't mix with them as quickly. And the nice thing about the pans is all you have to do when you're done is leave a little bit of epoxy in there and then twist it, and your big chunk of epoxy or whatever will actually pop right out of the pan, so you can reuse the pan. And you dip the roller in there. What I like to do is just put one edge of the roller in the pan to get some epoxy on it, then just run it. Press pretty hard the roller on the surface of the glass. That way it pushes that epoxy through the glass layer to the surface of the mold, and it helps hold the cloth in place. Now I do that the full length of the part down the center of the glass layer. But I like these little rollers, they make life a little easier. If only you could get stuff like this here in the States for the same price you can from Germany. The olive drawers are supposed to be really nice, that you can, supposedly you can put them in a bucket of acetone and reuse the rollers, but I'm not quite sure how true that is. It seemed like after a couple of acetone baths, the roller would start breaking down. But you never know, at least I don't, because I haven't used them. They're expensive at $3 or $4 a piece. They do have reusable metal rollers. I've got one that I actually bought with the intentions of using it for this, but it's more for like chop strand fiberglass than it is fiberglass cloth. So it doesn't work the greatest for this stuff, really. Right now I'm just trying to get as much of this epoxy out of this pan as I can. That way it doesn't start exotherming and curing quicker than I want it to. So I'm not too worried about getting the glass to stick down perfectly. I'm just trying to get rid of this epoxy. I'll come back later on with the roller and go down, make it look all nice and pretty and all stuck down and all. So once I get this particular portion of this fuselage molded, only thing left is that big center section on the bottom, and then the insides of the inlet ramps. Other than like the canopy frame and stuff like that, but the majority of this fuselage will be molded by the end of the month, probably by the end of next week, really. Then I can get on to designing all the internal structure and all that good stuff. All the stuff that'll take the rest of the year. Because I got to make up plywood and carbon laminated plates for cutting out certain portions of the structure. Then I got some Aerex and fiberglass panels that I got to make up for secondary structures, and a lot to do. Luckily, I'm not trying to get done by any specific time. I'm just going whenever I feel like it. In no hurry. Project's been going on for 5 years now. It's another 3. Hopefully, it won't take that long. The glass cloth I have on this bottom side and the top side overlap the edges by about ½ inch or so. So I just kind of get it really wet there and then fold the glass over the corner. It's not a perfect 90-degree corner. It's a little bit, has a little bit of a rounded edge, but it still makes things a little difficult. Because it doesn't want to stay there. to the other ones. All I do is I just bridge the crevice or the gap with the next layer of glass, and then I pull that glass down in the corner with my fingertips. And what that does is it takes the glass from the other two layers and it kind of puts a little bit of tension from the resin that's on it. And I'll actually pull that glass around the edge, and then you roll this layer down over it, and it kind of locks the two together. Then the areas that get carbon fiber get a lot more resin, so the carbon will stick a little easier, and so it'll suck it up. Again, this is my little wax paper 3M77 spray adhesive trick. Carbon here for the wing support bulkheads they sit onto. You have problems getting the wax taper off the carbon, so you put the 3M77 on too heavy. It's just a very light squirt of the stuff. That's why I've been fighting this stuff. I put it on a little too heavy. Take the roller, roll the carbon down. I put a lot of pressure on the roller at this point to kind of try and squeeze some of that epoxy out. And the extra large piece of carbon will go on here in a moment. After I put this back piece of fiberglass in before I forget it. That in. I'll say extra large piece of carbon fiber. It's extra large. And basically, it covers the entire gear door, halfway down the side of the fuselage, and the entire glove vane, and it comes back some 5 inches or so behind the landing gear to kind of take all that stress that you can get out of it and apply it over as large an area as possible. See, when the 377 done correctly, the wax paper just pulls right off the carbon. It doesn't even really affect it. That's the whole purpose, is not to move that weave at all. You want to keep it as straight as possible off the roll for maximum strength. Fingers to get down there in the corners really well. Hold it over the edge here. Trim off a little bit of excess here. And what I'm doing with this excess is right here in this portion of the carbon is where the main landing gear and the turbine come together. And I want to put a little bit more stiffness and strength right there. So these cutoffs, while they're not going to be pretty, they'll be between the outside surface and the core material so you can't see it. So I'll put these little triangle cutoffs right there in that spot. Just has a little bit extra strength and stiffness there. And again, take your roller and all everything you got in here. And we'll could also go right here. It just so happens that piece of square and then the little 2 triangle pieces you get overlap and fill in that whole spot right there where the majority of the main landing gear loads are going to be perfectly. Alright, let's mix up some more epoxy. epoxy, never ending. So my initial calculations on the fuselage weight so far, it's looking like a fuselage without landing gear, just basically everything, just a bare fuselage, gear doors, speed brakes, and then the wing pivot assembly, and then the horizontal stab actuators, to be around 12 pounds. That's just an estimate right now, which is pretty on par with what I'm expecting. Well, it's comparative to another F-14 already on the market. It's actually a little bit lighter. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get lucky and I'll surprise myself and it'll be under 12 pounds. You just never know until you get there and you pull the part out of the mold. Which unfortunately is going to be a while for me and this thing. Only because there's so much left to do and only so many hours in a day and just one person working on it. Alright, more epoxy. And I really load the carbon down with it, especially since they'll get another layer of glass over the top of all this. So I don't roll it a whole lot, I just kind of slop it on there pretty heavily. Make sure it's rolled down and stuck where it's supposed to be. As you can tell, there's not a whole lot of carbon in the airplane, or at least in the fuselage. I don't really think there needs to be a whole lot. I mean, you see these airplanes that these manufacturers advertise, oh, full carbon fiber wing skins. Honestly, I think it's just a sales gimmick. Yeah, they're stiffer and they're stronger, but they also cost a heck of a lot more. I mean, a properly designed wing will be perfectly fine with fiberglass and a layer and carbon infused in the appropriate places. There's no reason to go out there and spend $600 or whatever on a kit just because it has a solid carbon fiber wing skin. I mean, yeah, it's like, oh wait, the novelty of it, I guess, is what appeals to some. But personally, I don't think it's really worth the extra expense. If you can get away with fiberglass, I'll give you the same outcome for the same weight, maybe a little slightly heavier, maybe even slightly lighter. What we want is an airplane that flies. You're not going to see a carbon wing skin anyway. When's the last time you were flying, buddy asked you, hey, you got a solid carbon wing skin? I've never heard it. Because I've never had anybody ask me. Somebody keep track of that for me. I think it's probably about once every half an hour. Pretty dang good, really. Alright, there's that one. does, you can see right there how it's kind of starting to discolor and warp on me. Time for a new one. After. I don't even remember what time I started this video. Anyways. Hopefully somebody's learning something somewhere. If you're wondering where I get the RX, it comes from RNG, RG like Romeo Golf, -DE for Germany. I don't know what DE instead of GR, but I guess it's Denmark, Deutschmarks, I don't know. Anyway, Romeo-Golf.de. Prices are really the best I've found on this stuff anywhere, including a few others. I think one's in Taiwan. I think it's Clarisonic is the name of it. They're better than they were. The particular thickness I use is kind of, it seems like it's hard to come across other than Germany and Europe, so maybe that's why it's cheaper there. I don't know. Once I get all this stuff done and that center bottom portion, the next project will be those inlet ramps. That way I can join up these two sections with the bottom center, and then those inlet ramps can get joined up with the center part of this. And then I can do, then once I get that stuff done, then I get the wing spar bulkheads and the turbine mount bulkheads made up. What I can do is I can actually go in here and start making the inlet duct master pattern, which is another fun job in itself. Alright, last piece of the second layer of glass. Well, one more piece after this actually. Back here on the exhaust flange, if you want to call it that. You probably notice I've got a lot of excess overhang on these pieces on one side or the other. The reason why I'm doing it is just for a little bit of extra strength. I've always been told strength comes in thickness in composites, and the thicker the part, the stronger it's going to be. So, a little bit extra thickness here if it's at the, it's another extra ounce or 3. It's worthwhile in my book. And it saves time having to figure out trimming it and all that stuff. It's just a long enough process as it is. This layer I like to put on a little bit heavy as well with the epoxy, because when you get ready to put the core material down, I'll actually pre-wet it before I put it down, and it still has a hard time sticking. And the wetter it is, I guess it's kind of suction cups itself into position. You guys can't see this, but this is the last piece of the second layer of glass. Those are a little slow tonight and haven't figured it out. There's a third layer of glass coming up. Not right now, so don't go anywhere. But it's coming soon, I think. Alright. Move you guys over here to this table. I think that's the right spot. Yep. What it is just put clear plastic out on my table. And then just take your roller and epoxy and just roll the backside of this core material and just get it on there nice and heavy. And actually, as you go from one end of it to the other, you'll actually watch it absorb the epoxy. So when I say put it on heavy, I mean put it on pretty heavy. I'll show you. We're gonna move the table right now with the camera. So all I'm doing is just that glass that overlapped that has a hard time kind of folding over. I just put the core material down right over the edge of it and then slide it across the edge. And what that does is it kind of forces the glass to go exactly where you want it. And all that thermoforming we did, and you see it just flattens right out for you, and then it pops right back to shape. Haven't had anything break yet doing this, but it is a possibility. Look at that, epoxy again. I'll have just enough to do this piece. Alright, mix up more epoxy. Oh, never ending. More, more, more. And this one I'll actually roll epoxy on both sides. I should have really done it the other two, but too late. Another 180 grams of resin. If you're wondering how I'm coming up with my guesstimates on weight, all I do is I just take the amount of resin I've used and just double it. And that seems to come out pretty close. It normally ends up a little over sometimes. That gives you a 50-50 fabric to resin ratio, which is a little rich, a little heavy or so. I think most guys say you should get down to 40 to 1, 40, 60, 40% resin, 60% fabric. But with the core material, I think that bumps it up to 50-50. But this stuff's extremely strong, so it's well worth it. I'm excited to get this fuselage out of the mold so I can weigh it and see exactly how heavy it is. If that's what I think it's going to be, or even lighter, I'll be happy. Wing panels, I'll be glad when the pivot brackets will show up. They should be here probably by the end of the month. I ordered a full set of samples from a company. No landing gear. Still waiting on price quote for that. But ordered all the wing parts, all the stab parts, ordered a set of main landing gear wheels, tire molds for the main gear, and a couple other little rinky-dink parts for the wing system. But once that stuff shows up, I can stress test that one wing panel, and we can see exactly how much material I can take out of it. Yeah, you notice take out. I didn't say anything about adding. I'm pretty sure that wing's way overbuilt. So when the time comes, I might be going down instead of a 3mm core now. I might go down to 2mm, and I'm probably may end up reducing a lot of that carbon fiber. That carbon fiber adds the carbon fiber is really heavyweight stuff, so I may go to a lighter weight unidirectional for the spar cap than what's on there right now. I wonder why I'm doing both sides of this one but not the other one. I just forgot to on the other side. There you go. I made a mistake. Not really. Not a mistake, just a little bit extra work. Really not even extra work, it's just a little more time consuming. Trying to roll it when it's in there and curved and all that stuff. It's much easier to just take it out here and flop it down. That area that I put the carbon fiber at, that first layer, I'm leaving a little heavy with resin on the inside surface of this one as well. Just because there's another layer of carbon fiber going in there. Y'all have to bear with me while I put this in place. I know y'all probably want to see, but too bad. I already hear my dogs wrestle. They're nuts. Alright. Little mask. For you guys, Mac over here at the action. Going, I'm just putting a lot of resin in place. One additional piece of carbon fiber on this part. Well, now the noise makers shut up. Additional piece of carbon fiber goes right here. And what this does, it's a little bit more of a hard point for the forward portion of the elevator servos to mount to. Notice it's a pretty big gap between those two things. My elevator bracket system is designed to hold 2 servos. 2 standard size servos, which is pretty obvious. But doing the torque counts with the AMA guidelines, it's appear that you need a minimum of 2 JR 8711s on the elevators. So instead of using a plywood mounting system and then aluminum support for the pivot shaft, I got the aluminum pivot shaft support, and then there's it's basically a piece of